Hey, welcome to our Core and More FITT Core pelvic floor conversation about all things core, pelvic floor, why this matters to you, whether you are peeing your pants, have pelvic pain, have a persistent pooch, abdominal pooch that doesn't go away, um, bladder frequency, even honestly, chronic UTIs. This relates to you, this relates to core. And so if you don't know us yet, we are Journey Strong and we are doctors of physical therapy and health success coaches. And I'm Tracy Hill.
And I'm Jessica Midkiff. Welcome to the core party. Core, core, and core.
Core and more. We designed what we call the FITT Core, and it stands for Functionally Integrated Tummy Tuck. And we kind of designed it as like the name kind of came about playfully in a joking manner, but also talking about how so many women wanted to get rid of the pooch and wanted a tummy tuck, some serious, some joking, but just wanting to feel firmer and stronger in their core. And what we realized was that so many people are training core and they're working really hard and not getting the results that they wanted. And that could be whether you want the flat tummy or you want to get out of pain. But this conversation is definitely geared towards the pelvic floor core, the bladder issues. And so both of us, we've experienced our own pelvic floor journey, and as physical therapists, we have also gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of women for various issues revolving around pelvic floor. And it could even be about low back pain and understanding there's a pelvic floor component because just does it perfectly. She does it the best of describing this core container as as it relates to like this pelvic floor. The pelvic floor, like nobody thinks about, I got to get my pelvic floor stronger. We
Yeah.
think I need a stronger core. And so just maybe introduce this core container to us and so that we can understand this pelvic floor that we can't see, we don't really understand. You may have never even heard of it until you had babies, which I
Right.
think is very frequently.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, women have been having babies for centuries and nobody talked about the pelvic floor, and women have been peeing
No,
their pants and, leaking a little bit with coffee, sneezing, jumping, running. Hee hee, that's what we do. Oh, that's just what it
oh,
is.
it's normal.
And then there came this, this trend of, oh, now there's women's health pelvic floor physical therapy. I mean, I'm trying to think even when I was in PT school, if that was like
They,
it
no,
wasn't even an emerging thing, but
no.
so just like there are different exercise styles, there's yoga, there's Pilates, there's CrossFit, there's, all these different, there's HIIT. And now there's all these different kinds of physical therapy, and we've specialized the pelvic floor. Woo, it's women's health. Well, guys have a pelvic floor too. Okay. Um, so anyway, but yes, as Tracy was talking about this FITT, FITT, the functionally integrated tummy tuck came around playfully because we're women and women's waistline area, your core area, is a very personalized but also genderized area that is like we've been taught to hold our tummies in, and we want to have a waistline like it's a feminine quality that's kind of indoctrinated, but I almost feel too like there might be something instinctual around it. And so this breath piece, engaging your deep core. Like as Tracy said, lots of different core exercises out there, and they can be great, and they can also be done not at its best, engaging this deepest core, which then can put more pressure on your pelvic floor, part of the core that I'm going to talk about. So let me see. I don't have my pods in, and every time I go live, my dog has to bring a toy and be right next to me. So if he doesn't
We'll
have to
see
go
how it goes.
outside, then listen to all the chomping on whatever toy he's got. Okay, so the core, if you think about from our head to our tail, I can't, or head to our toes, I can't get very good here, but the midsection of us is our core. Okay. And then when we talk about this core container, let me see if I can move this without losing everybody. Do 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 do.
There
Okay.
you go.
Here I am. So core container, right? Middle here is, you know, the middle section, this core region. And when we think about, typically when we think about core, we're thinking about our abdominal core, right? This front, our obliques and our rectus, like that's our core. And yes, but beneath that, in order to get the most out of the strength and shape and form of these guys, comes deeper layers of this core container that Tracy and I have been on this learning journey. Because again, this wasn't taught to us in PT school as how we're going to describe it to you. So if you cut me open here across the waistline and you look up underneath my rib cage is this big old diaphragm muscle. So front ribs all the way back. Up underneath there is this big old muscle. The top of the container is the diaphragm. Nobody talks about the diaphragm being a core muscle,
Mm,
guys. It is
no.
not a trendy muscle. Nobody talks about it. So anyway, that's the top of the container. Then you go to the bottom of the container, and in this pelvic bony bowl, sits your pelvic floor muscle group. More than one muscle, but it's, let's just call it a group. So the top and the bottom of the container are, you got these big diaphragm, pelvic floor, and then sitting on the top of the pelvis, starting from the spine, it blends in with the spine and wraps around the top of the pelvis into your front core here, is called the transversus abdominis. I think a lot of people have heard of the TA, the transversus abdominis muscle. It's that deep, it almost looks like a muscle belt, right? And then another aspect of this deep core container sits along the spine, inner, like you take my innards away, and then we can see the spine, and we see these little diagonal kind of rotational oriented muscles that if you think about like a muscle corset that has, the tie, that's the multifidus muscle. So we've got diaphragm, pelvic floor, transversus abdominis, multifidus along the spine. And that is the deep, deep core that can be activated by way of the breath, that acts almost like this muscle hug that we've been talking about more
Mhm.
recently, of how it really cinches in
Yeah.
the deep core. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so as you were talking, I thought of a few things. First of all, I think the only muscle that you spoke of that maybe is trendy and people think about is the transverse abdominis. And the first thing that I thought of when, I think most of us have been taught the transverse abdominis is this brace it, like clench
Uh-huh.
it.
Uh-huh.
And then, or the other thing that I thought was, and if you've ever been to physical therapy for low back pain or maybe pelvic floor issues, is this posterior pelvic tilt that we've been taught of flatten your back to the spine. And so here, my turn to see if I can stand up a little bit. And so what I was thinking was, one, if we clench, okay, the second I did that, I actually felt like I felt myself clenching pretty much right up here at
Yep.
the top of my rib cage. And
Yep.
I actually felt my pelvic floor pushing downward. And I do have a compromised pelvic floor. I've had a series of dysfunction since having babies, and I know how to manage it. Um, but there's some things that I know I need to manage. And so the second that I did that, bam, I felt that pressure in my pelvic floor. So I don't like that.
Mhm.
Two, when I think about clenching, and then I think about my life of, I got to be here and here, and a lot of us we live in this. If you're a mom, if you're a woman, you're living this fast-paced life. Or if I'm sneezing and picking up the Amazon box at the same time, I don't have time to clench. And so what do I do? That
Mhm.
core is not supported. That whole container is not supported. And then when I thought about the posterior pelvic tilt, you can't really see, but that posterior pelvic tilt is really like if you had me laying down and you told me to do the posterior pelvic tilt, yes, it does activate your core muscles. The
Yep.
problem is it tucks your bum and teaches your core muscles to work here. And the second I do that, I actually feel my lower abs kind of paunch out. So those of you who are like, oh, like it's firm up here and I always just feel like I've got that paunch, that could be part of it. So aesthetically, we know that that's an important piece. But when I'm here, now I have trouble lifting. Like I can't tuck and control and lift. And this position here, this butt tuck, you didn't talk about this pelvic floor being connected. You said there's a lot of muscles. You didn't talk about how all these muscles that are connected into the pelvic floor, which is, all those glute muscles are coming in. But if I'm in this tail tuck, posterior pelvic tilt, immediately my pelvic floor is turned off. I can't lift. So now my back hurts because I can't load through these muscles. If I sneeze in this tilted position, my pelvic floor is not there to join the party. And so thinking about how does this pelvic floor relate to all the things that we do is really important. And so some of the strategies that you may have been taught
Mhm.
aren't working to support your pelvic floor. And
Yeah.
then we think about now, what have we been taught society wise of pelvic floor?
Oh, yes.
We've been
Oh,
taught to
Kegel.
do your pelvic floor and do your kegels. And you guys, I actually just remembered this memory of mine when I was a child. My mom told me when I go pee, I need to practice stopping my pee so that I don't have bladder issues. So my 76-year-old mom, she was clearly dealing with this, I don't know, in her 40s. I didn't know what she was talking about. And they used to tell women to do that. They used to tell women to train your pelvic floor. You need to squeeze when you're peeing and stop your urine. Do not do this. Okay, here's your medical disclaimer. Do not do this. This will give you a UTI. Okay. If you continue to do it, it can be a good test. I will sometimes tell my clients they can test it to see, but do not do this as your exercise because it keeps urine up in there and that could be a problem. Where was I going with that? Oh,
Well, all of these
we've been,
family, yeah,
yeah, like we've been taught that. So that was what this was taught, like just clench and squeeze, clench and squeeze. And as Jess explained to us, the pelvic floor does not work in isolation. It has to work with all of those friends of the container.
right. Which is part of Tracy's and my beef. That, again, we've created this special niche of women's health, pelvic floor, physical therapy. And in as a lot of the other aspects of physical therapy, if your physical therapy is all done on the table, then it's not a good service to you. And nothing in our bodies works in isolation. There's
Mm-mm.
a time and a place to re-educate and practice in re-educating smaller, more simple exercises, but then that must be integrated to get the best out of your body. So if you want to get the best core results out of your plank and side plank and your crunches and your Russian twist, and whatever core exercises you want to do. We are not poo-pooing those exercises, but you better do them properly. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're gonna give yourself pelvic floor dysfunction, back pain, hip pain, maybe a hernia, maybe a persistent
Mm-hmm.
pooch that just won't go away. So we're not here to poo-poo core exercise. We're here to like give you the lowdown on there's a whole level of core nobody talks about. And the only reason why we're talking about pelvic floor today is because, well, we don't talk about pelvic floor until somebody has a problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't
But
see
I think because the trend recently has been to specialize in pelvic floor,
it.
I even think that there's a disservice of a lot of physical therapists that have zeroed in just of pelvic floor and they forgot all their orthopedic knowledge around it.
Mhm.
And by all the orthopedic knowledge, I'm talking about the back pain that Jess was saying and the hip pain and some of these chronic lingering things. Like this is not just about do you pee your pants or not? This is about how do you support your whole body and how do you move, feel, and live your best. And I like to think of the pelvic floor almost as a trampoline that works in conjunction with all these muscles. And so when Jess talked about, that top container and that bottom container, and she kind of alluded to this breath and what this FITT Core FITT technique is, it utilizes the breath, which we have to breathe no matter what. And most of us are chest breathers and we breathe here to here. And so now if you see my trampoline, it's going the wrong way. Versus if I start to engage that primal diaphragmatic breathing, the breathing that you see your little baby do, It is this expansion of the belly, but it is this drop, expand of the rib cage, drop of that diaphragm, drop of that pelvic floor bowl. And now when I exhale, so this is like this load and prepare to do the thing. Pick up the kid, pick up the Costco order, pick up the laundry basket, do a heavy squat, load it, and set my trampoline. And I'm going to blow out like I'm blowing out through a straw, and I'm going to lift my trampoline. Picture, kids jumping on a trampoline. It's this load to explode. And that's what we want our bodies to do in conjunction with all those other muscles.
Yeah. Bless you. And again, we talked about there are all these great core exercises, kegels and bridges, glute bridges and planks and side planks, and they all have value. But what we want the point to be really is to really, really integrate and tap into your best pelvic floor strengthening and recovery. It comes by way, it must start by way of this breath and the diaphragmatic breath, not chest
Mhm.
breathing. Like Trace said, we automatically breathe. We're going to figure, our bodies are going to figure out the path of least resistance. And so in our adulthood, most of us have shifted from that, the baby's belly rising and falling when you sleep to, well, now we're stressed and and we're busy, 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 and we're getting our air in our lungs because we have to, and your body figures out how to do it. And so until you like happen to catch us on this live or you start to have some dysfunction, we don't even know that we've lost the power of this diaphragmatic breath. And it all starts with the diaphragm. That is where your
Mhm.
best strength for anything, whether it's lifting weights or like Trace talked about, the laundry, the kids, the yard work, whatever it is, being able to reconnect to this primal diaphragmatic breath and then being able to practice it and integrate it, basically reset our bodies to back to how it was designed to be, a powerhouse at this deepest core, which allows us to be strong in every move that we make in life. So yeah.
Yeah. This is about getting you to go longer, stronger, lifting if you want to lift heavier, or if you just want to do life better. It's feeling better in your body. And I think one problem is, and this is some, gym culture, exercise culture, is we're really good about forcing motion. We're really good about doing the task. You go to the gym and you're told to do a plank hold for 2 minutes. I'll tell you what, I have seen women that surprise me of just being able to brace down and like hold their breath and clench everything. But watch yourself. So I challenge you, like if this is you, of like, oh, I can do a plank hold for days. Put yourself in front of a mirror in your sports bra and look at that plank hold and look to see, like, am I just clenching and bracing for dear life? Or you might look at, like, are you getting this like doming peak thing going out of your belly? There are certain plank holds that I will notice myself of that where I need to shorten the lever and maybe drop to my knees because there are still some positions that are challenged for me. So watch yourself in the mirror, like see, like, am I doming? Or see, am I getting that separation? It's called the diastasis, but you'll see like a gap in this middle area. Some people like if it's kind of been shown as like this sexy thing to have this line, and so I think that a lot of people want that line, but is that gap, is that line too widespread? Is it starting to open up and separate those abdominals versus, like just said, give that hug and cinch and control the body? And so, or same thing with like a bridge. I have seen people just like lift their hips and force up, and that belly just pushes out versus loading the glutes and controlling the core and letting everything lift up as your hips lift up. So those are some things, like look at yourself to see, am I pushing out or am I able to expand and blow, activate and lift it? And that straw breath, that pursed lips breathing has been shown on EMG studies to activate that pelvic floor. So for those of you who have been taught to do the Kegel, and maybe you're like, I don't even know if I'm doing a Kegel. A Kegel is a lifting of the pelvic floor, which is not a bad thing. We're just saying it's not the end all be all where all you want to do is squeeze, 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 because that can cause other problems. That's a talk for another day. But that straw breathing actually automatically kicks in that lift of that pelvic floor. And that's super valuable when you're it's hard to connect that pelvic floor because we can't see it. We can't see like, okay, I can see my arm, it's contracting. But that pelvic floor sometimes is a little trickier. And so utilize that straw breath. And that is what we teach in our FITT Core and our FITT Core challenge is how to do this effectively so that you can do everything that you want to do more effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, the 21 days of basically practicing fit, is it a challenge to you or is it just building a foundation? I mean, our topic today is around pelvic floor. Pelvic floor is part of that deep core. But I mean, practicing fit to do life, it could be practicing fit because you do want to lose that paunch a little bit and start re-engaging that deep core that helps to kind of flatten that. And you reconnect to that deep core. A lot of people say like, I want to be able to work my lower abs. And nobody talks about like, well, if you just breathed with your diaphragm when you exhale, that cues it in. Well, that's not sexy. Nobody talks about that. But
No.
if you haven't done this technique, this fit technique, and you start practicing it over the course of 21 days, guaranteed you are going to feel things connect differently as you're walking around, when you're, getting dressed, when you're looking in the mirror, when you're reaching into the dishwasher or lifting the laundry basket or going to the gym. You're gonna start to feel it different because neuromuscularly, you're reconnecting to that deep core container in a way that you probably haven't done since maybe you were a kid. I mean, we don't know. We don't
Yeah.
know when all of this stuff goes offline, right? We don't know until we start having a problem or we're not getting the results that we want. And you're
Hmm.
like, oh, what's going on here? So the 21 days of practicing the fit breath, yeah, core exercise by breathing. What the heck is that? Yep, it is. It's intended for all things, not just pelvic floor. But again, our topic today was talking about pelvic floor. So.
Yeah. And I think it's cool to think about this 21-day Fit Core challenge. Like you said, is it a challenge? It's a challenge to you, but it's a 21-day reset foundation. And I think the biggest takeaway that we wanted people to get from this challenge was we're not selling the end all be all. You have to do this sequence, which we have created in this challenge, a very good sequence that's definitely going to activate this core foundation, the glutes, everything connected together, which is amazing. But more importantly, it's the 21 days foundation that's going to stick with you to do the things, the other things that you like to do. If that's a plank hold, then it's a plank hold. If it's sit-ups, if it's deep, heavy squats, deadlifts, or, again, housework. It's not just you have to do our workout. And that is the only way. This is your foundation system that's going to go with you into every single bucket of life that you want to do, that you need to do with less limits.
And it is the beginning of pelvic floor rehab, like a reconnection,
Hmm.
restoration of good function, or even back pain. I mean, we integrate this fit breath with our clients on whatever aspect of the body that we might be focusing on. So yeah, it's got value way beyond the pelvic floor. You're working the pelvic floor without thinking that you're connecting and concentrating on working the pelvic floor, but it has so much more to offer that even if you didn't even know you had a pelvic floor issue or dysfunction or weakness, you're going to find the benefits behind it because it's how our bodies are designed to work. No one's ever taught you that. So,
Yeah. So if you've been told to just do your kegels, or if you're told a little leakage when you sneeze, cough, run, or jump is just part of aging, um, just know that it can be supported. And if you're dealing with that lingering low back pain, achiness on top of those pelvic floor dysfunctions, know that they're all they go together. They're not your low back pain and your pelvic floor issue. They are part of each other. And so if this is you, then our 21-day Fit Core challenge is definitely a great place to start building your foundation.
Absolutely. Reconnect to your foundation, your fit
Hmm.
foundation, the core of
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. And we'll post the link to get this opportunity to join the challenge. And as always, reach out to us
Yeah,
and let us know what kind of questions you have so that we can know how to support you best.
sounds great.
All right. Bye.